Hey everyone, in this video I wanted to provide a quick tutorial on how to make your own sandbox parks in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. I'll show you how to design a park where you have full control over all the rides you have access to, how guests behave, and everything in between, so let's go ahead and get started. So to start, the first thing you will need to do is open up the scenario editor in the toolbox menu on your startup screen. If you are playing on Rollercoaster Tycoon Classic, this is actually an additional toolbox add-on that you'll need to buy in order to access this menu. I believe it's $3, but once you buy it and add it onto your game, it acts the same way, so you can just follow the steps as I'm doing here. When you open up the scenario editor, the first thing you're going to see is this menu. This is the object selection menu, and this is where you will choose which rides and other items you will have access to in your sandbox park. This can be anything from certain ride types, scenery items, even the color of the water you want in your park. I'd just say mess around with different rides and see which ones you want to include. So now that we've chosen our items to use in-game, we can now move on to the landscape editor. This will allow you to decide what you want your park to look like. Here you can add things like bodies of water and mountains, and you can actually add scenery that will appear when you first load up the park. In this instance, I left my park as a blank square, but play around with it, see what looks nice to you, and you can really get creative in this mode. The landscape editor is also where you will set your park boundary, where your entrances will go, and where the guests spawn from off the map. So first you will place your park entrance. If you'd like, you can actually place multiple ones like I did here. When I was recording this, I actually decided to change my entrance from the basic one to the entrance gates instead. All you have to do is go back to the last menu, select your entrance, move back to the landscape editor, and once you've decided on what you want it to look like, then you'll place it down, create a path leading off the edge of the map, and this is where guests will automatically spawn before entering your park. So if you don't like where the game automatically places your guest spawn point, you can actually move it manually. All you have to do is press the button with the little person on it, then you can move that spot to a different location. Now, in OpenRCT2, you can place multiple spawn points, but in Classic and the original game, you'll only be able to place one spawn point, so keep that in mind when doing this. So the last step of the landscape editor is creating our park boundary. Since this is a sandbox park, and I'm here to just be creative and not really give myself any limitations, I'm going to give myself access to the entire map from the very beginning. First, you'll select this button with the fence on it, which will pull up a few options. If you want the option to give yourself the chance to buy land as the game progresses, you can do that as well, but I won't be doing that for this park. In this case, I'm going to select land owned, then start selecting the entire map, except for the small section where the entrance paths are. You'll need to leave those paths as unowned land, as guests have to spawn from outside the park for this process to work. So next, you're going to move on to the invention list setup. So in these two menus, it has all the items that you selected right at the beginning, and you'll have the option of having those items be available to you at the beginning of the scenario, or you can have them get unlocked as you progress through the game. The top list is items you start with, and the bottom is ones which get unlocked later. In the sandbox parks, I usually just start with everything unlocked from the beginning, but you can customize this however you want. You can drag items up and down however you please. So the second to last step is our scenario options list. Here you can decide how much money you want to start with, how big of a loan you can take out, and even if you want money to be a factor at all. You can also decide how happy guests will be when they enter the park, how intense of rides they prefer, and even what kind of weather you want your park to have. There's also a list here where you can decide if you want to include extra challenges when building the park, things like you can't knock down trees, or there's clearance limits, things like that. So mess around with this list, see what you want. I'm leaving all these blank since it's a sandbox park and I can always mess with them later. So the final step is going to be the objective selection menu. Here you decide what kind of goal you want to have for your park, whether it's attracting a certain amount of guests, making a certain monthly revenue from ride tickets, or even just having no goal at all. You can just select the have fun selection and then you're good to go. Then you'll name your park, add a brief description of your park and where in the main menu it gets saved, and then you're all done. And you can now save your park to your park folder, and it will show up in the start menu, and you now have a custom scenario to play whenever and however you please. So I hope this video was helpful for everyone. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe. Otherwise, I appreciate you watching all the way to the end, and I will see you all next time. Bye.